Hi, welcome to the next episode of the Big Little Business Podcast. I'm joined today by Adrian Warwick, who is a business and executive coach based in Essex. He helps small business startups and other slightly larger businesses throughout Essex and guides them on what they need to set up and have in place to start a business and get it running as they build and as they grow. Hi, Adrian. Thanks for joining us.
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
Your lovely setting here in Essex. It's there's a log burner going in the background. It's all nice and snug.
Like a scene from last Christmas.
It is like a scene from last Christmas, and yeah, we could do with a few inches of snow now. So, Adrian, just for the listeners, just give us a bit of a background on how you got to be where you are and why you wanted to provide the service you provide.
Yeah. Basically, it all started. My career started a few years ago. I had a recruitment business that I had for 10 years. I built it up. I put into place an exit strategy. Eventually sold the business, and from that it gave me choice. So the business I had was a recruitment business that worked UK and overseas, and from the choice I went on and did a couple of other bits. I wrote a series of children's stories, got involved in songwriting, etc. But on the business side I decided to put the experience I'd gained into helping others, into coaching. And that led to me becoming a qualified life and business coach. Just so as everyone knows, I'm a Shinrin Yoku guide, so I can take people out of their leaders out into the woods, into the wilderness, teach them well-being, mindfulness, etc. And I also decided as well that when you work in business and when you work with people, it would be useful to have a mental health qualification. Sure, so I became a mental health practitioner as well. And then from there, I started coaching some larger businesses, even up to the value of 400 or 500 million in value. And I've done that in the UK and overseas. And then 2 to 3 years ago, I looked at the local market and I thought there's people here who need help.
For sure, yeah.
People with great ideas, and if you've got a great idea, it's not quite enough anymore. You will need to be able to implement that idea and make it work. So at this moment in time, I'm working with some local businesses, and they call me at different stages. So for example, if we go through someone who calls me, they've got an idea, they want to start a business and they don't know really where they're going or what they're doing with it. But more often than not, people call me having had that idea and having started the business. That's normally when I get the call. Because when you've got the idea, you don't normally think about calling anybody until that time you press the button and you're sitting there, and day 1, day 2, week 1, week 2, and you're thinking, what do I do? What do I do with this? Where do I go? I've got this idea, but I don't know where I'm going. And so when I'm called in, I'll go in, I'll assess the person, I'll assess the business as well, and we look at what they're trying to achieve, what they've got to sell, whether it's a service or a product or both, and then the best way to get to market, etc. So I think for the benefit of what we're doing today is if I just explain everything from idea stage,
sure, yeah,
through to, we won't go through to exit because that's another story, and that happens with people a few years on.
Sure. Because
people start businesses as lifestyle, people start businesses to lifestyle and make a living, people start businesses as well to actually, they've got this dream, and the dream can be achieved to make a good living and then eventually exit the business. And exit planning is, as I said earlier, it's a whole different story, and it takes an awful lot of planning.
Yeah, it's hard enough starting up a company, don't think about how you're going to exit it.
Yeah.
There's so many things you've got to get through to get the company up and running and out there. The worrying about, in 10 years' time, this is how get out there.
Yeah, exactly right. So you've got the idea, and I would say to people, anyone who's got that idea, if you believe in it and you understand there's going to be a lot of hard work involved as well, because we can all have the best ideas, and I meet a lot of people who have got these great ideas, And I sit there and say to them, so with this idea, what are you going to do? Well, I've read that this will work. So they seem to think that they've got the idea and people are going to come to them.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Nothing works like that. So what we do is we sit down. So they've started the business, as I said, normally. So these startups they could have been in existence for a week. It could be months.
Yeah.
It could even be a year plus. But there's a point when they think, I've really got to do something here. And so they reach out for someone like me. So they've got the idea. I sit with them, we look at it, and then we go back to basics. So the first thing is, from your idea, you need to start with a feasibility and a risk assessment. So is the business feasible? Will it work? Yeah. What are the risks as well? Because most businesses take a certain amount of finance. Sure. If you're going to work from home, you're still going to need finance to buy perhaps your capital equipment, your materials, whatever it may be. Yeah. You first have to buy to have something to make money with, and then you might be looking at the fact if it's a retail outlet, for example. So if you're making cakes, you're selling clothing, whatever it may be, crafts, whatever it may be, is that once you take on premises, there's going to be rent involved.
Sure.
Now, another thing that people tend to forget, and it's an important point to mention, is that when you start paying out rent, when you start buying materials, when you look at your utility bill, when you look at possibly taking someone on, that's an outgoing. So you're spending. Yeah. And if you are spending, let's keep it simple, if you're spending £10 and you're only making £7, you're losing money.
You're losing money, simple.
Yeah. So I explain to people that to make money, you've got to exceed your expenditure as well, and that even when they do that, there's two different types of profit. And again, I can talk to you about that another time, but there's a gross profit and there's a net profit, and the only one that matters is the net. It's what's left in your hand at the end of each year.
Once you've sold it, bought it, sold it, all the bills are paid, all the overheads are out of the way, what's left?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So we go from feasibility and risk, and then with the feasibility and risk, I always say to people, if when you're doing your feasibility, when you're doing your risk assessment and you find that, oh, hold on, this is a great idea, or I think it's a great idea, but it might not work, is don't be afraid to rethink, or don't be afraid to turn around. Yeah. Because I've had to help some businesses get out of big holes. We've managed to achieve it most of the times, but there's been one or two businesses I've worked with where the hole was so deep,
too far in.
Yeah, that my recommendation was that really there wasn't a lot that could do, and you have to be honest. You've got to cut your loss at some point, because they would have got into more trouble. But if you execute your plan and your feasibility early enough, and the risk involved, normally you can avoid that, because you say, right, okay, it's going to take a lot of hard work, but this is fine. This is fine. We can do this. We can achieve this. The other things as well is that whatever you're doing, you've got to believe in it. You've got to be focused in it as well. And you've got to wake up each morning. Not every morning you're going to wake up and go, oh, I'm loving this. I'm going to get into the office, get into the shop, go and do whatever I'm doing. There's going to be mornings you wake up, there's going to be headaches. So another thing I look at very early on is what should you do and what should you outsource as well. Because so many people are afraid to outsource. One of the biggest stumbling blocks is that you talk to a lot of people and you ask them, you say to them, right, okay, so work-life balance, where are we? Well, I get home and I'm doing my books. And you say, well, what do you mean you're doing your books? Well, I'm doing my books, I'm doing my finances. Now, one of the first things you should outsource is, and it doesn't cost what people think it costs, there are accountancy practices local that deal with small businesses.
Sure.
Yeah. And by outsourcing your financial matters, so if you're VAT registered, then they'll sort that out for you. Your monthly books, instead of having piles of paper stacking up, or every night scratching your head and you're thinking, God, where do I put this and where do I put this and
Yeah.
do this? These days, and we've got these things such as QuickBooks, etc. There are other products available as well, obviously.
Sure. Not advertising, just QuickBooks.
Yeah, no, not at all. But you still need that professional help, because you can find yourself getting into a lot of trouble.
I think it's crucial to have the financial side of things set up and in place, because the longer you go into it without having that, you're going to have invoices, you're going to have stuff going out, money coming in. It's understanding where each pot of money goes is allocated to.
Yeah, correct.
And it can become a complete minefield.
Yeah.
I've been through that myself.
You find a lot of people as well with finance. It's like, for example, there are a lot of businesses out there that will take on a capital loan from somewhere. So it could be a bank, it could be an angel investor. There are angel investors that deal with lower level loans, but again, that's something that early stages, if you're doing that, make sure you understand what you're taking on.
Yeah.
Make sure that's part of the risk.
Yeah.
The risk assessment and the feasibility. So you've got your business, and you've done your risk assessment, you've done your feasibility, and this sounds really boring perhaps. As an example, if you're going to be a small retailer, something that you're doing from home where you're independent, or there's just one or two of you, whatever it may be, is that the word plan always sounds massive, but it's not. Is that anyone you look at sports people, you look at business people, anyone who's successful always has a plan in place.
Yeah.
And the plan doesn't need to be complicated. The plan is just, okay, so this is my idea, this is what I plan to do, and then you've got to work out where's your target market.
Yeah.
How are you going to reach that target market? How do I use the social network effectively? If I choose to use LinkedIn, how do I use that effectively? Are local network groups any good? Is local press any good? If there's any noises coming through, we're right in the middle of nowhere, and there's bats landing on the roof. So, but you've got to look at all the factors that are in place that will enable you to get your name out there and get people coming to you to buy your service or your product.
Yeah, and it's research as well, because there will potentially be other small companies and independents like you who are doing exactly the same thing. So find out what they are doing as well. We'll give you some ideas on how to market yours, not literally copy and paste and do the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think as well with that, it's understanding what makes you different from Joe Blogs on the high street or whoever else is doing a similar thing to you. You have to have that unique selling point, don't you?
Absolutely.
What makes me different? What makes my brand punchy? What makes people think they're different? I'll give those guys a try, and then you build up that relationship, and know, like, trust comes into play. You get repeat customers, etc.
Yeah, and it's very, because it's really interesting you mentioned that. USPs, there used to be a lot more USPs around, including just a few years ago. Your capital equipment could give you a USP because it was far better than anyone else's. But because everything is so affordable now, that's gone. So your USP is normally down to you and your service values. Yeah. That's what people are looking for. We're living in a world now where there's so much choice. You look at the internet, you look at TV, wherever you're looking, whatever media platform you're looking on, if you type in what it is you're looking for, the choice is immense. And also at that point, I'll mention as well, I meet a lot of businesses where they have someone come in and they say to them, oh, we can get you top on Google. Now, if that is true, everyone would be top, right? On Google. So don't rely on, because again, I meet people and they say, oh, well, I've been told I'm going to be top on Google. You'll be top if you type in Fred Smith's Butchers, but if you put in butchers in Essex or butchers in wherever, let's have a look. Oh my God, I'm not top.
Yeah, page 54.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because the person isn't lying. You are top as Fred Smith's Butchers. And Fred Smith, if you do exist, you do a great job. But you have to take into account that is not going to be the case.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's not just it's sometimes a chunk of money to get you to the top, and it's all the SEO and the algorithms and the Google bots and everything else that's in play, from my understanding, my basic understanding of that. So you've got to be very accurate and very acute with what you do. Butchers in Essex, you're going to be, if you only one, there's only one Fred Smith's Butchers in Essex, you're winning.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
But people have got to know the name of your shop.
Correct. And this
if
is the thing.
They don't know that, then they're not going to look for that. Again, it goes back to butchers in Haybridge or butchers in Romford or whatever. There's going to be 40, 50, 60.
Correct. And that's the thing. And you make people realise that you've got to be a massive brand where someone recognises the name, and there's a certain clothing brand you like, you type that in.
Yeah.
But generally it doesn't work. So basically the next thing is now, so you've done your feasibility, you've done your risk, you've got your idea, you've done your plan, and it's how am I going to get to market? How am I going to let people know I'm here? And that is a combination of, and again, we could talk all day about this, but it can vary. If you're on the high street, then you've got to look at the social network to let people know what you do, what you sell, what offers you may have. Build up your following. Join local networking groups, whether they're retail networking groups, business networking groups, etc. The other thing to do is to make people aware in startup situation. A nice way to get traction is to introduce an offer. Introduce it on the social network, start getting yourself together a mail list as well, and then as people start to visit you, get them on the mailing list. You can keep them informed as to deals you might have coming up, whatever you've got coming up, special promotion evenings, whatever it may be. The more information you've got on people, the better. And on that, if you start setting that kind of thing up, and most businesses should look at this anyway now, it only costs, I think, approximately £30-35 a year, but you should make sure you're registered with what's called the ICO. Every business that deals with people has any information, it's the Information Commissioner's Office, and they deal with data and GDPR.
Right, okay.
And if you make yourself known to the ICO, all it means, and it's not anything for anyone to worry about, if you are keeping information on people, you just have to make sure that it's protected. Yeah, and it's an important point because businesses who don't understand that can get themselves into potential trouble.
Yeah, it's good to know. It's a good one to know, actually.
Yeah, and it really is important because data now, as we know, is so heavily protected that you have to be fully aware of it.
And everyone gets those spam emails. Keep on getting them. Keep on getting them. Keep on getting them.
Absolutely.
People sell the mailing list, don't they? So
exactly right. And it's just really important that if you're keeping personal data of any sort, then just make sure that you have registered with the ICO and that it's protected, and then you have fulfilled your obligation. Then you're okay.
Covered.
You're covered. The networking I've mentioned.
So with the networking, just quickly, I think if you're going to set up on a high street, if you're going to have a shop, I think you've got to be a personable person that likes to engage with customers. You've got to be, if you're not confident, you've kind of got to find that confidence to go and speak to people, shop owners that are nearby to you, to say, this is what we're doing, what do you do, how can we help, and help each other, because high streets, a lot of the big shops are coming in and kind of taking over, where you've got those little niche independent businesses. Having that retail network with other little high street independent businesses is quite crucial in getting footfall through your door. Have you seen Mrs. Smith down the road? She's doing X, Y, and Z. I might go and pop in.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's having that little network as well for the community and keeping the community shops thriving.
Yeah, because absolutely right. We're seeing more and more now that so many more businesses, I hate to say it, retail is one of them, going online. And to keep an example here, Malden town in Essex, where I actually live, not far from Malden, really lovely town. This was yesterday evening. when we put this together, it's December and we're looking outside, was a Christmas night when they turned the lights on. And what was fantastic was you had all of the shops open late, you had market stalls, etc. And what I noticed walking around last night, was that whether they're shop or stall, but especially the shops, because they were there all the time, it was so lovely. They were inviting people in. They'd obviously all perhaps got together. You could buy soups, you could buy this, you could buy this. There was special offers being made, etc. And there was a real community spirit, not just from the people who were attending, but from the business owners as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You could see them all talking to each other. So there's certain shop parade walks, there's different parts of the high street in Malden, and everyone had made an effort. And as I was walking around, a couple of other things I picked up was that someone was walking out of a particular shop, and the shop owner said, you should go and try them over there as well. Go and have a look at what they're doing. And that, everyone thinks networking is going to one of these groups at 6 in the morning and having a dodgy breakfast.
Dodgy breakfast for 15 quid.
And that if you want that kind of networking, then yes.
Which does work. I've done it. It does work. I've done it before. It does work. There are some great breakfast networking companies out there, groups you can meet. It does work, but it is an early morning. You do spend a lot of money. You do put on weight quite quickly.
Yeah, we've both been there. And but the thing is, the word networking just means reaching out and making contact with more people. And basically, one of the things that if you've got an effective network, you will get referral and recommendation and repeat work. And never forget, when a client, whether it's service, whether it's product, comes into your shop, comes into your service, comes onto your website, buys from you, whatever they do, if you can retain those clients and have them coming back, repeat business is
key. Right?
Key.
Repeat business is key. Because you build up that customer base. So 1 or 2 are coming to you, they're telling their friends, soon you've got 4 or 5, then 10, 20 coming to you, and it slowly just expands, isn't it? Your funnel of clients, it just grows and grows and grows. And in doing that, you've got to be, I think this day and age, you've got to be personable with it. You've got to get to know your customers and understand them. It's a bit difficult to do if you're doing it online, but I think there's ways of putting yourself out there these days with the talking heads videos and bits and pieces, so that the online people can see who you are and identify with you more so than just being a reply on the email. Thank you very much for your business. Have a great day. We'll see you next time, kind of thing.
And that's another thing. You're absolutely right. Is that I always encourage businesses I work with that they don't just hide behind mails, or they don't hide behind just an internet connection, because we're seeing more and more businesses now that don't allow you to talk to them, and that includes local businesses. If you want to book a certain thing, you sometimes don't get a chance to talk. You've got to do it online. And
it takes away that personal interaction, that initial interaction of understanding who you're dealing with, and are you going to get on with them? Do you like them?
Absolutely right. And give you an example. If you're booking a meal, as an example, and you've never been to a place before, I don't care how old you are. I think sometimes you just want to make that call and say, look, we're thinking of coming over to eat with you in the next couple of evenings. Do you do this kind of food? Do you do this kind of food? What's it like? What's the atmosphere like? Because if you go somewhere knowing what the experience is going to be like, you've made a choice. If you go somewhere and you just booked it online because the pictures look nice, it might not be what you want. And it might not be what you want if you talk, but at least you're informed. And I think I would encourage any business to inform and let people know what it is they're doing. What's the added value? What are the benefits, etc., etc.
It's always good to have that initial conversation again with someone on the phone and go, well, we're probably going to be less busy on this time, that time. That'll be a good day. We're doing these special deals. On Thursdays we might have these special soups or whatever it is. So you're like, okay, we'll work on Friday, we'll come Thursday. That sounds great.
And the other thing to remember as well is that a lot of people say to me, oh yeah, but we're only a small business, but and I say, well, no, never forget that, I mean, you look at some big stories. I mean, you know, you look at the McDonald's story, which started off on basically on a van, kind of more or less thing, you know, in a hut, whatever it may be. So you're never just a small business. As a small business, you are as important as the bigger business.
Yeah.
And that's, you have to remember that. You have to, if you don't value yourself, how can anyone value your business?
Yeah.
They can't. You can't. You have to. People have to see that you feel good about what you're doing, what you're selling, that you want to help them. You want to, and if you don't know the answers or you don't have the product, never bluff. Sorry, I don't know that. I can find out for you.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be.
Honesty.
Honesty is absolutely critical.
Yeah. I mean, there will be times where you're going to have to wing it a little bit.
Yeah.
But honestly, you need to be more honest.
Yeah, and it's about, I think an engagement is important as well. And I always, again, another thing I say to people is when you're making decisions, is that just remember that your listening skills are key, because you'll pick up far more from listening than just talking.
Yeah.
Because when you're listening, the person is normally telling you about them and what their need is, or they're telling you what they're looking for, or they're telling you what they want, or they're telling you what they don't want because they had a bad experience about it before.
Yeah.
So if you listen, you can pick up all the buying signals as well, which is important. Then you've got the socials. We've all got, well, most of us have a Facebook account, an Instagram account, whatever account it may be.
TikTok these days, and
Yeah.
Snapchat.
And
Don't
it's
know how to use them myself.
no, and it's one of the things I would say to people is that with socials as well. I spoke about outsourcing earlier, and I've got on my pad here that which is my pad I carry around everywhere, by the way. That outsourcing socials, when you can afford it, is worth doing. But again, always make sure that you check the credibility of the person doing it for you.
Yeah.
Ask to speak to their customers. Ask about their background. In fact, anything you outsource, as a small business, you should check as to credibility and what they can deliver. Because the thing as well is, it doesn't matter if you've got £1 million business, a £10 business, whatever business you've got, we've all only got X amount of money and budget to pay for the services we need.
Yeah.
So select very carefully. I would always recommend your accounts is outsourced. And social networks as well, you can control it. They'll offer you packages. You don't have to spend fortunes. But you've got to understand what Facebook is going to do for you. You've got to understand what Instagram's going to do for you. You've got to understand what TikTok's going to do for you.
But they're all very different. The reach they have and the demographics as well. I think understanding who your ideal market is and what age group. TikTok might not be one for you to use. That your clientele may only be primarily using Facebook because they're of that age.
Yeah.
If you're targeting a younger audience, it's going to be TikTok and Snapchat and whatever else potentially.
Correct. And the other thing as well is there's a thing that we all know them as influencers. But again, no disrespect to influencers, there's some very powerful influencers out there. I mean, you know, we all know the power of certain big name brands, whether they be sports people, whatever they may be. But with influencing, again, don't get too sucked into it as a small business. If you've got, say for example, if you've got clothing and you want that clothing brand to get out to people, if you feel that someone's got a following, it's going to add value to your local business, then perhaps say to them, well, I'll tell you what, look, I'll give you this product to wear, as long as you promote it for me, etc. But again, I've helped people away from that. I've seen people get involved with influencers and suddenly find the spending gets away with them, because you tend to not control that kind of spend so much. It's easy to control the spend on cups of tea. It's easy to control the spend on pieces of paper. It's easy to control the spend on this, that, and everything else. But when you're caught up with your heart, sometimes the spend can get away with you. So, and I'm mentioning this because I've experienced this with people.
So with the social network kind of thing, where you've got your understanding of your demographic. If your target is 30 to 50-year-old men and women, whatever it is, if they're just going to use Facebook, it's what is your product? Who are you going to sell your product to? If it's going to be cakes, you're not really going to hit the younger audience. But again, if you're hitting the businesses out there, what would you use?
Yeah, I think this is what's really important, is that most of us kind of guess. I've got a Facebook account, I've got an Instagram account, I've got a LinkedIn account. Yeah. I don't have a TikTok account. Now, I would just say to everybody, this is why you do need to talk to an expert, because actually, and you'll find, I'm not saying this is across the board, you'll find a lot of these experts, some of the best social network planners I have met have been of a younger demographic.
Yeah, because they understand it, right?
Because they understand.
People our age don't necessarily understand that.
Correct. And I'm not saying, I'm not labeling it, I'm just saying, so you have to make your choice, and your choice should be made on, you do, whether you employ them, you do need to have that initial discussion with them to find out what platform's going to be right for you. And you have got, people say it's the more professional LinkedIn. I think you've got to try your platforms and decide what you want. LinkedIn gives a different thing, business focused. Facebook, I don't know enough about to say exactly what it can do for you. All I know is that with Facebook, it tends to be people kind of possibly having more chat with friends. There's certain promotions on it.
Yeah, I think Facebook's more, if you're a local product or service, you can get your name out there to your local community quite easy and to quite a large audience, I think. I think it's a bit more difficult with Instagram, because Instagram's more...
Yeah, Instagram is kind of video and picture led. But again, I don't want to, I would rather let, and I would say to you throughout, because I'd rather be totally on the level with this feature that we're doing, but I would always contact a social network specialist, because they will understand. The same as I can help businesses start up, develop, and make money. Someone who deals with social networks can help them get the social network strategy, and it's the word strategy that's correct. And I think, and we'll wind up on this one today, because I know we're going to be doing
we're doing part two of this one as well. There'll be a second episode of this coming.
What we'll do as well is we'll talk about this, but with your strategy, that is something that is discussed when you set out, and basically with your business strategy, with your social network strategy, it's where you're targeting to get to and how you're going to get there, and how you're going to achieve it. And I think the final thing I'll say on this thing today is we've covered some issues, we've covered some ground, but never forget, when you start a business, it should be enjoyable. As well.
Yeah, very much so.
There's
going to be days where you're like, oh God, wow. But you get through it. You start doing little things, going, oh yeah, I remember now. I remember why I kept to do this.
And also, customers or staff, I'm massively people focused. I'm a great believer in that. When we was at school, if you take it right back, when we was at school, the lessons we were all good at we enjoyed, were the ones we were good at, or the ones we liked the teacher, or the ones we were good at and we liked the teacher. If we had a teacher that we felt was strict and we didn't like them, no chance. If you didn't like the subject matter, no chance. And as adults, we tend to forget that. And one of the things that it stands out to me all the time is, if you are people focused, a people focused business will succeed. And this is for another time, but that's why I specialise as well in cultural coaching and communications coaching as well in companies, to make sure the culture is right. But we can talk about that another time. It's been lovely meeting you.
Brilliant. It's been great listening to you, and some of the advice and tips and bits and pieces you've shared with us have been fantastic. Adrian, thanks very much. We'll see you for part 2 of this business episode. Thank you guys for listening and watching if you're on YouTube. Part 2 will be coming. Click, subscribe, like, and share with your friends. This is some valuable information we've got for you. Speak to you soon.